Cleansing is gut health. Cleansing is removing inflammation.
You are listening to the Grown&Vegan Life Podcast, Episode 7. Welcome to the Grown&Vegan Life Podcast. I am your host, Deetta Rohde. On this podcast, we talk about being vegan from the perspective of being healthy. And we take a deep dive into being healthy in the other areas of our lives, like relationships, money, and mindset. The ultimate goal is to be whole and to experience joy in our lives, not just our eating. So, we look at both practical and spiritual ways to experience optimal health. The main thing to remember is that nothing in this show is meant to replace medical advice from a trained professional. I am sharing my experience and the experience of my guest. Please use wisdom and take what you feel will work for you. Now, let's get started with today's episode.
There we go.
There we go.
Perfect.
Right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. I can see you, and we are good to go now.
All right.
All right. So, everybody, welcome to the Grown&Vegan Live podcast. We are actually doing Grown&Vegan Live podcast. We are actually doing this live for the very first time, and I'm so excited to have my guest with me, Kevin, the visionary, and he is a detox and gut health coach, and we connected here on Facebook. Conversation started about herbs, and that just led into a lot of different things. And so I'm very honored to have you, Kevin, to come in and join with me. And I'm just excited for this conversation because I really believe in the message that you have. I believe in the information that you share. And so I want to have you go ahead and just introduce yourself and then go ahead and share your personal story of being healed and healing yourself through plant-based and all of those things, all the things.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to be here. And like you said, we did connect through Instagram. And so, a little bit about myself. So I did have some health challenges. I was kind of on the fence with, being plant-based. I went vegan years ago, and then I kind of went back to eating meat and dairy again. But it wasn't until I had some health challenges is when, after I decided to explore it a little more, and then I just went all the way in with it. And so, but the funny thing is, right, before I go any further, when I was a child, I did not like meat. I didn't like any type of, the taste of meat was horrible to me, right? And so to circle back around, and now I'm, feeling better, feeling healthy, and going more plant-based, I just didn't think it was a coincidence. And my son was the same way. My younger sister was the same way. Hey, Vivian, she's on here. We of us like meat. And, but, I just think that, maybe that was my body kind of telling me, hey, something's up with this thing, right? And so what happened was, as I got older, I started feeling sluggish all the time. My lower back would hurt a lot, like to go on walks and stuff and to stand for a long time, my lower back would hurt. When I would take showers, I would get out the shower and my skin would itch really bad, like profusely, just like really bad. I would put lotion on and it wouldn't help. What else? I would, when I would get off of work, I would have to go home and take naps and stuff, just tired all the time. Something that, one of the things that really stuck out was I was at work and my toes started rubbing up against my shoe. And at first I'm saying, this was a few years ago, I'm saying, is my feet growing? I'm like, what's going on? So I went out and bought a new pair of shoes, a half a size up. And I'm thinking everything's fine. I go back to work again, and it's rubbing again. And I'm saying, wow. So I went out and bought additional pair of shoes, a whole size up, and the same thing was happening. So I'm saying, and I didn't even notice it until maybe a whole year later what the cause was. And so one day I actually looked down at my feet, and my toes were starting to curl inward.
Wow.
And, at the time, I'm still arrogant, ignorant to, plant-based dieting, herbs, and all of that. And so I ended up getting some lamb's wool, and I put it between my big toe and my little toe, and my toe right next to it. And that kind of helped out a lot, the rubbing. I developed calluses on my toes from that. And so I also had, when I would go, urinate, I had blood in my urine, heavy amounts of blood in my urine. It was, one of the times it happened, it was a lot of blood, like I said in my book, crime scene blood. I mean, it splattered everywhere, all over the toilet, over my legs, on the floor. I mean, it was a lot. And so I went to the doctors, when I say doctors, multiple doctors, and they, drew blood for testing. I had CT scans done. They took, I forgot the actual term for it, where you take a camera and you go inside and look at, look inside your bladder and stuff like that to see what's going on. Mm-hmm. They didn't give me any solution. One doctor said, I think I've seen this before, but you don't have anything to worry about. And so as I began to research, I found out that my kidneys weren't working properly. That was one of the reasons why I had blood in my bladder. And that's not supposed to happen. You're supposed to have water in your bladder, which is in the form of urine. And the reason why it's urine is because there's toxins in there. And so when you drink water, it circulates through your body with the blood. That's what helps the blood move. And so that's why whenever if you're dehydrated, the color of your urine is darker, because you actually have some blood in there, like a little bit, right? That's why they say you need to drink water, because that water also helps the filtration process in your kidneys. Mm-hmm. And so I found out that my kidneys weren't working properly because it wasn't filtering. My body was inflamed. And so to make a long story short, I began the journey of detoxing and cleansing and changing my diet and everything. There were a few other things, but everything went away.
Wow. Yeah, that really blew my mind when I heard your story about when they told you were okay. You didn't have anything to worry about. It's scary, because we trust people, and not anything against medical profession, because we need them. I've used them myself, but it's very scary when you're told something like that, and then you're just kind of left to figure it out. So this drove you to get into plant-based and learn more about how to heal your body through food and herbs. But the conversation that we want to talk about today, because we could talk about a lot of things, is about the cells. And you've been really having that conversation on your own platform about how we need to attack our health or approach our health by the cells. So I want to just ask you why cells, basically. Why do we need to focus on that area when we're talking about our health?
So I want to say something also, too, before we get to that. So a friend of mine actually suggested, there's a guy who actually does the same thing. And I want to give him, the acknowledgement also that I started watching and learning about the herbs and stuff. And so that's kind of how I got into it from that aspect. And so I was just kind of, just going about it, just listening to whatever the doctors say. I had no thought as far as what to do. So the reason why I think cell, talking about the cells is important, is because most of us, when we think of dieting, right, we hear, we read articles, we watch YouTube and Instagram, and everybody's talking about detoxing. A lot of people's talking about dieting and exercising, and you hear about herbs, and there's a lot of people selling different herbs and suggesting different herbs. But when you understand the big picture, right? The big picture is we all are cells. And, when you think of something minute, right? When you think of, let's just say, a foundation for a house, you look at that foundation and you look at the concrete, and just picture in your mind, literally construction going on, and there's just a foundation with the great concrete, right? That would be the body, or our body. But if you got a microscope and you focused in, you zoomed in all the way down, that big foundation is actually made up of tiny sand particles. And each one of those tiny sand particles would represent a cell. And so without those trillions of particles, you have no foundation. Right?
Yeah.
And so when you understand that, you think back to the body and how it works, right? So I did a post today talking about cells create tissue, and tissue becomes organs, right? And so when you think of a person being sick, right? You say, oh, your immune system has been compromised, or, your lymphatic system has been compromised. Okay, I understand what you're saying, but that's not entirely true, because actually it's your cell or cells that have been compromised. That's why you get sick. That's why you have kidney problems and cancer and all these different things. It's the actual cell. So when you learn to feed your cells, then you change. You have a change in mindset of how your body becomes healthy.
Okay. Yeah, that breaks it down and kind of helps you get the big picture to understand what we need to do. So when we realize that, the cells are what we need to focus on, how is it that we can address that issue? How can we protect ourselves, feed ourselves, nurture them so that we do become healthier in that level?
Well, I think most people already have the idea of what to do from the standpoint of dieting. I think it's just the isolation, right? Because, I've talked to a whole bunch of people, and as far as dieting and stuff, and, sometimes they'll get pumped up. They say, yeah, I like the information, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this on Friday. I'm going to do this next week. And then they go right back to doing what they've always been doing, right? So I think first it's about education. It's about understanding specifics. It's about understanding that if you do A, you're going to get B. There's no other alternative. So for instance, right, the way cells eat, your cell, every single person on planet Earth, your cells eat the same way, right? You just say you eat some strawberries. It goes into your gut, into your stomach. It gets digested. It goes into your intestines, and your intestines break it down to where it becomes what's called simple sugar or a simple sugar, which is glucose. The best form, there's 3 types of simple sugars. The best form is glucose. And the one that most of us are familiar with because we drink it, we eat it all the time, is fructose. Fructose is not good for you because it's harmful. Not as harmful as the third category, but I'll stay away from that because that's not as relevant, but the two that's relevant that most of us consume is glucose and fructose. You heard of high fructose corn syrup, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you go in a grocery store today, 70% of what's on the shelf for food is fructose.
Mm.
But fructose is not that great for you. And so, to bring it back to understanding that, so if you want to, like for instance, right, the other day we were talking, and I said, what is the best form of water to drink?
Yeah.
Right. And what did you say?
Spring water.
Right. So I said, why is spring water the best water to drink? And what did you say?
Well, I didn't have an answer, but I know the answer now.
The answer is because it has minerals in it, right?
Yeah.
And we know that minerals are good for our body. So how does the spring water get minerals? The spring water gets minerals because it's in the earth. And as it's moving through the rocks and the sand, and it's picking up all the magnesium and all the different irons and the different minerals, potassium and different minerals in the earth. So when you consume it, you get those minerals. Mm-hmm. So if you know that, and if you ask 10 out of, 90 out of 100 people, if you ask them that question, they're able to say, oh yeah, I know that, it's spring water, without even blinking, without even thinking about it. Well, if you know spring water is the highest form of water to consume, well, then the question is, what's the highest form of food to consume?
The light should go off right now.
Because
plants.
Yeah. Because plants have roots, and they're in the earth, so they're absorbing all the minerals and the nutrients from the earth. Mm-hmm. And if your cell consumes glucose, if you do your research, the majority of plants and fruits convert or break down into glucose, and your cells consume it. What it does, your cell will consume what it needs for right now. It gives you energy, and then it stores the rest of it for later in your liver and other parts of your body. And then when you need that extra boost, it'll use it for later on. But it only does that with glucose.
Mm. Wow. Huh. Okay.
Most of us don't understand that.
Yeah, I don't. And I never really thought, about dealing with the cells. But now that's like on my radar. I want to really focus on there. So, we were talking about herbs and I don't know a lot about herbs. That's something I really want to learn more about. But tell me how herbs work into our cell health and our overall health, and why are they important for us to have in our life?
Well, it goes back to what I was just talking about, right? So mm-hmm. The highest form of food would be plant-based, right? Because it has all the minerals and the nutrients from the earth. Well, it's the same thing with the herbs, right? So before I say that, let me say this. So people talk about herbs for detoxing, right? Mm-hmm. And but we don't realize that when we consume fruits and vegetables, that's actually a slow detox, because it has the same properties as the herbs, because it's a plant. It's coming from the earth. And the reason why each herb has certain properties in it, once again, is because it's specifically designed to grab nutrients from the earth to give that to that plant, and then you consume it, and then you get those minerals. And so, yes. So when you talk about herbs, you're talking about, stuff like, dandelion. You're talking about elderberry. You're talking about, burdock root and stuff like that. And certain herbs can be taken to be specific, meaning that there's certain herbs that will help the kidneys and the kidneys only. But some of them cross. Some of them will do multiple things, but you can put together herbs that will help you with your liver and different parts, your colon and different things like that. So when people talk about herbs, mainly they're talking about it for detoxing, right?
Mm-hmm. So when you take the herbs, should you take this only during detox, or is it something that we should incorporate into our daily regimen?
So it depends on the type of herbs, right? But most of you should be taking something or utilizing something daily, because, and this is a topic that, once again, something that we never really think about, right? Mm-hmm. So growing up all our lives, we hear about protein. You need milk for protein. You need to eat your meat so you can get your protein. Protein, right? But the building block for the cell is protein, vitamins, and minerals. You need all three for a healthy cell. And so when you look into it, the same doctors and medical professions that talk about protein will tell you that you only need 10 to 35% of protein in your diet intake. So wait a minute, hold on 1 second. So are you telling me to drink all this? If I'm slim and skinny, if I have a child and they have the quote unquote standard chart, that you're supposed to, at 7 you're supposed to be 25 pounds or whatever the chart says, right? When you're 40, you're supposed to be 140 pounds or whatever it is, that's foolishness. Because one, everybody's genetics is different, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't tell me that I'm supposed to be, 225 because I'm 6'3". No, that's my genes don't tell me that, right? And so when you understand what's going on, you don't need protein. You don't need the quantity of protein that they tell you. So when you consume fruits and vegetables, there's protein in it. There's protein in all fruits and vegetables. But you need protein, minerals, and vitamins. And then those same professionals will tell you, go to the store and buy some vitamins. Wait a minute. So you see what I'm saying? So it's a game.
Yeah.
Because if you're healthy, they don't get paid.
See, that's the thing. Vitamins, I've been told to get the vitamins. I was just asked recently, where do you get your protein? From a healthcare provider, where do you get your protein? And I mean, I get it. My protein actually is pretty good. But, that's the big question. Everybody does focus on it, but I never really thought about the vitamins and the minerals. So with the herbs, they treat our cells by detox and pulling out unhealthy things, or how can a cell repair itself? Is that how it does it repair through the herbs, or how does that process go? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so two things. One, so cells have life cycles. So they live and they die, and they rinse and repeat. But when they're alive, they have to function, just like you and me function. So it's one of those things where when you have, like, let's say, for instance, somebody that's diabetic, right? We've seen countless times where a person was diabetic and they're no longer diabetic. Mm-hmm. How is that? The doctors say, you need to be on your insulin. You need to be on these medications for the rest of your life. But then you change your diet, you take some herbs, and you do a few things. And what happened? Mm-hmm. Your cells repaired themselves. Mm-hmm. Just like when my kidneys weren't working properly, just like when I had all these other issues, I removed the inflammation from my body, I changed my diet, and my cells repaired themselves. And so that's the process.
Removing the inflammation. Okay. Because that's kind of been on my radar as well, is chronic inflammation, anti-inflammatory foods. And now I want to learn more about anti-inflammatory herbs. So now I know that in your course you offer, you suggest a combination of herbs. So I know we can't get into that full recipe, but can you just kind of explain maybe one particular herb that and what it will address and how someone could incorporate that into their daily life?
Yeah, I'll actually give you 2 or 3 of them. So,
okay.
So you have burdock root. That's a really good herb for removing toxins from the body, the blood, and it has a lot of minerals in there. You have sarsaparilla. That's a really good one for the liver, for inflammation. So well, I'll give you the last one, and I'll touch on this. And you have yellow dock, like the word yellow and dock, D-O-C-K. Yellow dock is good for the colon. It's high in iron. So a lot of people who are quote unquote iron deficient, right? Mm-hmm. Once again, we're deficient in nutrients, and for some reason, nobody can figure out what's going on and why people are sick and why people have all these issues. It's a nutrient issue.
Yeah.
The foods that you're eating are not providing nutrients to your cells. That's it. So those 3 herbs are really good herbs to start off with: burdock, yellow dock, and sarsaparilla. And that was one of the things that I found out about myself, is that I was highly inflamed. The reason why my back was hurting, the reason why my toes started curling, my bones, so the blood from your body is actually created in your bone, and it comes out of your bones into your body, the bone marrow and all that. That's the whole process. I'm not going to get into that, but blood is created in your bones. And so when your body is inflamed, when my toes were curling, it's because my bones were inflamed, right? Mm-hmm. And so you could have inflammation in all types of different parts of your body, in multiple parts of your body at the same time. Mm. And so you're thinking that it's all these different things, but it's one problem.
Inflammation.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So how do we use the herbs? How do we?
So the simplest, so there's multiple different ways to use the herbs. You could take them in pill form, which is you'd have to buy stuff and create the pills, make the pills yourself. You can take them in tincture form. You can take them in just a tea form, where you put them in a cup with some hot water and let them sit for like 15 minutes or so. Strain it and drink it. A lot of herbs might not taste that well, but it's worth it. Because, when I first started, it was rough, because I went all the way in. I was just mixing stuff and combining stuff, trying to, figure out what was what. And, but now I like the taste. Now it doesn't bother me. I drink it and I don't have a problem. And so, yes, the simplest way, the way I recommend for anybody that's starting out, would be to boil some water, 8 ounces of water per teaspoon, and just let it sit for 10, 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. You could draw out some of the properties and strain it and drink it.
Okay. That sounds simple enough. Sounds easy to do.
It is.
Yeah. So vitamins, minerals, and protein to build a healthy cell. I'm just going to recap what I'm gathering from this conversation. Pulling out the toxins from our body and eliminating the inflammation allows our body to regenerate, basically, and rebuild healthy cells.
Correct.
Okay. To eradicate disease out of our body.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think that, I would love to keep talking and go deeper, but I honestly, it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know all the time. And so that topic, I need to really investigate as far as just learning more about it, because like I was telling you, I feel like this is more prevalent now. More people are talking about cell health, and it just makes sense, because instead of addressing things at a surface issue, going down to somebody said foundation, so now I want to say it, going down to the root of the issue, really, that's where it all begins. So I appreciate all of this. I don't know if you have anything else you want to share, but if you want to share anything else, please do. Otherwise, please just let people know, your offerings and how they can connect with you, and how you can assist them in this journey.
Yeah, I see my friend Mika Zion. She's on here also. She's really foundational and also helping me with this process.
Okay.
To the guy Yaki Hickman and with the herbs and stuff. So hey, Mika. So yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Kevin_the_Visionary, and Facebook it's Kevin the Visionary. I have you can also find me at wellnessbythevisionary.com, or you can go to my bio and click on the link to my link tree. And so I like you were saying, I have a course that teaches you about detoxing and cleansing. And so I want to touch on this for a quick second. So a lot of times, before I learned this process and came up with my own process, I heard people talk about detoxing. Everybody talks about detoxing. Everywhere you go, you can find the word detoxing everywhere. But nobody ever really talks about cleansing.
Yeah.
But detoxing is simply removing toxins from the body. That's it. There's nothing else to detoxing. Hence the word tox, right? Tox.
Thank you for listening to the Grown&Vegan podcast. Be sure to tune in next week for another great episode. Also, visit grown&vegan.com to stay connected, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And check me out on Facebook or Instagram.